Hi everyone. My name is Bumi Akiremi, and I'm a Gold Microsoft Lesson Ambassador and also the Community Manager for Microsoft Learn Students Community OAU. I am so excited today to bring you all to this exciting session because we have in the house Uche Promise Nwachukwu, right? And he's going to take us through the getting started with DevOps on the transformation journey. And just to add like more context, right? So Uche is actually an expert, right? Is a senior consultant, and DevOps, and he's also a Microsoft MVP. Like it's really exciting and it's really great for us to have in today's session. I really can't wait to see the gist and the whole package he has for us today. And also, if you do have questions, probably during the session, please post it in the comment. I would make sure to bring it up and this is going to answer your question. Right. Promise, I think I can add it to the stage now. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. How are we all doing today? I mean,
Doing good.
um, thank you very much, Bumi, for that wonderful introduction. Like I said, I intend to show the reasons why everyone should start thinking and working towards the DevOps line. Actually, it's a very interesting field, and I'm hoping that by the end of my session in these few minutes, I should be able to show one or two things as regarding what makes DevOps interesting. All right, guys. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be discussing on something very, I will call it kind of not so difficult, but quite interesting. And basic, and like I said, it's interesting because we are going to be looking at a topic that people have really been wondering what's so special about this. You know, I hear the DevOps thing. Why is DevOps so special? What makes DevOps unique? And because I don't want you to get scared, because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, I want to start from the basics. So I want this course to serve as that course that you remember some years from now and you say, thank you very much, Promise Uche, for introducing me to this session. And probably you would say, okay, it was due to this session that I had that made me delve into DevOps and start eating the easy money, like people would always say. All right, today we are looking just on getting started on a DevOps transformation journey. Now, as many of you would know, or even those who aren't used to what DevOps is all about, DevOps generally is, I will simply call it automating stuffs. It could be automating processes in your organization just to ensure that probably at the click of a button, you can have a whole deployment in, let's say, 1,000 systems, right? Or you can have a website hosted at just the click of a button. Now, that is where people like you and I come in, who are interested in DevOps, who love DevOps, and who want to be DevOps enthusiasts and engineers, right? We make these thoughts come to life. So just imagine in my office right now, my boss tells me, oh, Promise, I would like to probably get a database system such that at the click of a button, I should be able to carry out a query on a database system. Or at the click of a button, I should be able to deploy a Kubernetes cluster from afresh, right? And of course, my boss reaches out to me because he knows I have that skill, right? He knows I have that skill and he wants me to help him automate this process, right? So, I mean, all I simply do go at the back end, write some codes here and there, create a pipeline that would run those codes, and before you know it, at the click of a button, we are able to deploy probably 1,000 clusters in probably 1,000 subscriptions, all in just with a click of a button, right? That's the beauty of DevOps. right? And like I said, I do hope that at the end of this session, you'll be you'll look back at this session some years back and you'll say thank you for bringing this my way. I know you're students right now, but I mean, it's from here the desire gets born. Once the desire is born, you can then be able to implement this anywhere you find yourself in. So we're talking about DevOps, and we are like, what is really DevOps, right? Here it says DevOps is the union of people, process, and product to enable continuous delivery of value to end users. Take, for instance, now we all know what has been happening in the Nigerian banking system, right? Where sometimes we have some apps not working as should, right? Now, if a pipeline has been configured for this purpose, right, and probably there needs to be a little change. Now, it would amaze you that once that pipeline runs, the app doesn't need to go down, but then that feature, an additional feature which is needed, can automatically be updated, right? Even while the app is running. Okay, if for instance that application, that bank application is hosted on a Kubernetes cluster, a Kubernetes cluster has a feature such that imagine like you have five or let me say 100 pods running that website, if that's the scenario. Now, if there's an update coming from the pipeline, the pods are able to work in such a way that the site is being held by 50 pods, the rest of the 50 pods are being updated. Now, once the 50 pods are finished and gotten the recent updates, the other 50 pods hosting the site starts getting updated. Now, all traffic will now be pushed to the other 50 pods that have already been updated. So it's like it will just be like a seamless transitioning. A seamless transitioning in the sense that imagine you're starting from here and the next moment you are in the other field already with the updated features. No stress, no single stress. That's what DevOps does to you, right? DevOps helps you integrate things, it helps you to deploy, it helps you to operate. And of course, feedback is very important. I mean, if you're running a pipeline that does all of these wonderful functions, you want to ensure that you're able to get feedback from your colleagues, your end users, and even your the operations or management team. And of course, once you get this feedback, you can then be able to take or incorporate those changes that will be necessary into the pipeline. And then you plan all over again, you build all over again, and then you go on the continuous integration. So it's a loop, it just keeps going in a wonderful loop, right? So that's what DevOps is basically about. Now, I wouldn't spend so much time. I would like to show you a thing or two, and I'll in the midst of all of this, I'll quickly deploy a website, and I want all of us to connect to that website and see what I'm actually saying. You would actually get to see this being hosted in a live server. So, let me show you what I mean. Okay, this is a pipeline which I have created. This pipeline basically deploys a Kubernetes cluster, right? So let me show you the Kubernetes cluster I'm referring to. Okay, so with the click of that pipeline, I was able to deploy a Kubernetes cluster, right? If you look at this resource group right now, just a moment. Yes, this is the resource group that holds the Kubernetes cluster, and this is the Kubernetes cluster in itself, right? I'm just going to connect to this Kubernetes cluster and show you how the pipeline in itself does work. So is here is a link. Just a moment. here is how I connect to my Kubernetes cluster. I click on the connect button and I get this. So I'm going to try to connect to the cluster from my system, right? And then I click on this. So what I'm trying to do is I'm simply trying to connect to the cluster so that I can be able to control my cluster in Azure, right? That's what I'm simply trying to do. Now I have been able to connect to the cluster, right? And then I'm going to run a few commands. You can see kubectl get all. Okay, so what I'm trying to do right now by running this is I'm trying to get all the services that are currently deployed in this cluster, right? So now you can see all the services currently deployed in this cluster. Isn't that interesting? Look at all the pods running in this cluster, but yet I don't still have a service running into this. All of these pods and everything you can see here are simply just what's the word I will call it? They are simply just applications used to monitor this cluster. That is what all of this you can see. And all of these things were deployed by just a simple click of a button, right? You can see this. This is what deployed the cluster. Now, I want to just do a simple deploy of an application, and I want everyone to be able to connect to that cluster, to that particular application. So I'm going to go ahead to do this, right? So here is the application, and this is how I am going to deploy it, right? I'm going to run this pipeline all over again, right? And let's watch what happens while this deployment is taking place. Now you can see the deployment is ongoing. So basically, like I said, all of these things have been automated. They are codes that have been put in place just to ensure I can be able to run pipelines like this. You can see it says the job is pending, right? So you can see currently what is going on here is that it's trying to build an image for me, right? It's trying to build an image for me. Once the image has been built, it's going to push the image, right, to a what will I call it? An ACR, a container registry in Azure, which will host that image. Now, once the image is being hosted, the next thing it's going to do is that it's going to try and download that image through some Kubernetes files that will create some pods that can be reached online. So what that means is this: with the pods being created, you will definitely see that application running with a public IP address, and someone like me and you will be able to connect to that pod, right? And you will be able to view the application running. Just in a bit, you can see the deployment is currently ongoing. So now is deploying the application into the Kubernetes cluster. So here you can see the Kube installer, which is installing the kubectl in the Kubernetes environment, right? And then it will apply the files which I have previously configured. And right now, it's going to deploy an application called Prometheus and Grafana, which will be used to monitor the application, right? That will be used to monitor the application. And I will show you like some real life instance on how you can actually watch and see these applications taking place. I mean, it's a very, very interesting technology that once you are able to understand how this works, is something you would always want to learn, is something you always want to have a deeper idea. And trust me, not just the fact that this is an interesting technology, there's actually money also in this technology. Learning this alone can secure your future. I'm telling you, it has the power, the ability to secure your future, not just as a student, even when you graduate. You understand? Some of you now might be wondering, what do I study once I graduate? You just need to learn things like this. Once you learn things like this, you'll be amazed at the possibilities that are available for you. So you can see here right now, the deployment has taken place, and you can see where he was creating this deployment. You can see all of these deployments were being deployed just right about now. You can see 13 seconds ago. Now let's connect to the cluster. Let's connect to the cluster and see what went on just now. So I'm going to clear my screen and I'm going to run the same command I ran earlier so that you can be able to see it in, full glare, right? All right. So just clear the screen again. And then I'll do something like this. QCTL get pods, right? Um, yeah, okay. QCTL get pods. Now you can see that this application was deployed 2 minutes ago. You can see it was deployed 2 minutes ago, right? Now, let me do something. Let me show you something. I want to show you what this application looks like. So I'll do something like this: QCTL get pods, right? I want to use get QCTL get all minus n in the default. So what I'm saying, get everything you've deployed in the default namespace. So let's see what happens. Now look at all the services that were deployed in the default namespace. You can see how powerful this is. Now, for you to be able to reach this application which was deployed, you just need to go to this public IP on port 8080. So I want everyone to go to this public IP on port 8080. If you're live on this training, I want you to go there and let me know if you were able to reach the application which I just deployed. Right? You can see me trying to go to that site, right, on port 8080. And let's see what happens. So you can see in just less than 2 minutes, I was able to deploy an application in just less than 2 minutes. And funny enough, I have the login details for the application. I don't know if to share that, but it's just I would just call it a very simple application, such that it's a Spring Boot app that just holds some static database configured in there, right? It just holds some static database configured in there. So at this point, let me get the username and password to log in into this, right? Okay, so I think I have a username. I have a username here, right? And I have a password here. So now you can see this is the application. You can see this is the application, right? It's just a mini application where you can decide to create some employees and do some funny. I wouldn't call it funny, but just it's a little application that was just done with a static database on the back end. But what I'm just only trying to explain to you is this: just imagine how this was created in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's the amount of time it took this pipeline to run. Now imagine what you can do if you have 1 hour. Of course, the work that was done to make this possible was done, I wouldn't say it was done in exactly 2 minutes. No. Of course, I could show you some of the code that actually went into making that site possible, right? Um, let me show you. Let me show you some of the codes that actually made that possible. So here is just a short code block, right? That made this deployment possible. That's why I said, of course, it didn't happen in just 2 minutes, right? So here was the Kubernetes cluster. This is the Kubernetes cluster that actually deploys this application, the cluster itself. That means what I mean by the cluster is this whole infrastructure that is holding the application, right? So if you are wondering, what do I mean? Look, what I say, the infrastructure holding this application. So take a look at this right now. Let me do kubectl get pods, right? Minus n default minus o white. Now, this is what I mean by this. So just to let you know that actually this is the cluster holding this application. You can see this Spring Boot, which was deployed 7 minutes ago, is running on this AKS agent node, right? And then if you come to Azure here, you can see those instances running, right? You can see those instances running here. I think these are the node pools. These are the agent pools, and here are the nodes. Okay, this is for the agent pool. Sorry, let me give you this is the cluster configuration. Let me give you where the nodes are being hosted. Yeah, so this is where the nodes are being hosted. You can see here you have the NSG, you have the route table, and you have the agent pool in VMSS, right? You have the agent pool in VMSS. So you can see these are all the instances at the back of this node. You can see them. So this is to tell you that what you're seeing is not a joke. Look at the name here. Can you see the name here? And can you see VMSS 001? You see, it's exactly the same thing here, right? What this is trying to tell you is that this is the infrastructure hosting this application. And you can see here, from here, you are able to see the public IP of the application itself. I don't know how many of us are actually connected here and can actually log into this application right now. Is anybody able to do that? Are you able to connect to the application? I don't know if you're able to get feedback. Okay, so let me leave it up to this point, and I know we actually run out of time, but let me open this up for questions. I don't know if you have any questions. You're bothered about what kind of technology is this, how is this technology running. Just ask me questions. Let me see if I can provide some answers in the last 5 minutes of this session. Hello, Bumi, are you there?
Yes, I am. I think it's been a very interesting session. Now, how you just
Okay.
been tweeting.
All
Like what
right.
just in my mind was how you like deploying static web app in just 2 minutes, like
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's the beautiful thing with with pipelines. That's what pipelines do, that make it an evolving technology, and people really want to invest in this. Just imagine a site being up in 2 minutes, right? And the funny thing is, these codes I've used, someone else can come up and use these same codes and build this site in the next 2 minutes. So you can see the person doesn't need to think about oh, where do I start from? How do I start from this? You just need to run the same codes and you will get the same output every time you run the code. Isn't that interesting?
It's
Exactly,
amazing.
exactly the same output you get now, you would always get it every time you run this code. So I mean, it's just something I would say it's so beautiful. And like I said, uh, pipeline DevOps, you should actually get to learn this. You should get to learn this. I don't know if you have any questions. Trust me, you can always reach me. But then you need to do some work. It's not. It's not. What's the word to say? But it actually takes some effort. But don't be worried about the effort because I believe this is something you can do. I
I
believe this
believe
is
so
something you can do.
too. I believe so
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
exactly.
thank you
Mm.
so much for this session. I'm sure
You're
everyone that
welcome.
is like definitely want to get their hands because I do want to get my hands on this.
Definitely, definitely, definitely,
Definitely.
definitely.
So it's pretty insightful. So thank you so much once again. I'm
All
checking the
right.
comments. I'm not seeing any questions yet.
All right.
But just
Okay.
in case of the community, anyone asks questions, I'll be sure to forward them to you.
Yeah, definitely. You can also share my LinkedIn. You can reach me on LinkedIn on Promise Unwachuku or Promise Uche Unwachuku. I mean, feel free to reach me out, send me a DM, and we can always talk and communicate from there.
Great, exciting. So
All
thank you
right.
so much, Promise. We hope to have you in
Welcome.
that session again. Probably
All
sometime
right.
today.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a
Bye
wonderful
bye,
day.
y'all. Yeah, take care.